Good evening. Tonight we're going to be going over the next portion of our Introduction to Health and Fitness class. To date, we have already gone over the systems of the body. We've discussed branches of exercise science. We've talked about the benefits of exercise. And we've also talked about the components of an exercise routine. Tonight, we're going to talk about, first we're going to review anything from last week that people might have been confused about, if anybody had any questions. And then we're going to talk about the FITT principle. Please remove the E, it does not belong there. That was an error on my part. But we're going to talk about the FITT principle, which is taking the components of an exercise routine and using them to create our own exercise programs. Then, if we have time, we're going to learn how to calculate maximum heart rate and target heart rate. And then we're going to, again, talk about the basic exercise programming. So, again, tonight we're talking about the FITT principle. And so, the learning objective here, as you saw in your syllabus, is that by the end of the course, you're going to be able to design a beginner exercise program using this principle, the FITT principle. And we're going to talk about the different components of that. So basically, the FITT principle is a way for a person or an exercise scientist, an exercise physiologist, to program exercise either for themselves, if that's what they would like, or for somebody else. It could be in a hospital setting, like a cardiac rehab. It could be in a gym setting as a trainer. Lots of different ways to apply it. So to review the components of physical fitness that we talked about last class, is first of all, cardiovascular endurance. So what is cardiovascular endurance? Who remembers from last time?
Heart.
Heart, yes, absolutely. Heart, getting that oxygen out to the body, making sure the muscles have the energy they need to perform the work. So cardiovascular endurance basically is fitness, aerobic exercise. Then you have muscular strength, and that's the ability to lift things or to exert force over time. Endurance is similar to muscular strength, but it's more of a long-term thing. It's kind of a cross between endurance, aerobic, and strength. And then finally you have flexibility, which is being able to move through range of motion. So first part of our FITT principle, which we have the acronym here, is frequency. Frequency is the number of times per week. So generally speaking, and most recommendations are that people should exercise 3 to 5 times a week. So that you're getting from the government, the Healthy People 2008, also ACSM, which is the American College of Sports Medicine. So generally, moving just to the next slide, same topic, next slide. But for a beginner exerciser, how many times a week do you think you should be exercising?
Low end?
The low end, absolutely. You don't want to overdo it. If you're just beginning out, you might not have the endurance to do a lot of exercise, plus you don't want to get discouraged. So definitely keep it on the lower end. Then muscular endurance, muscular strength, those are things you want to do 2 to 4 times a week. Now, something that we're going to discuss later on, but something that I also want to mention right now, is for strength training. Now with muscles, do you want to do strength training, muscle building every single day? What do you think?
No.
No, not at all. And does anybody know why?
It's going to strain your muscles.
Going to strain your muscles, absolutely. What happens when you strength train is the muscle fibers get torn. That's what makes them stronger, is the healing process. So if you don't give them that time, then they're not going to get stronger. They're actually in turn going to get weaker. So you definitely want to take that time to give them the time to recuperate. And then flexibility, daily stretching, okay? You want to, again, be able to just move through your regular activities, your normal routine without feeling tight or uncomfortable. Next is intensity. Intensity is how hard you're working. There are several different ways to measure intensity. We're going to talk about 2 of them right now. If we have time, we'll talk about 1 more. So the first thing you want to look for when you're talking about intensity is just how you're feeling, okay? So a light intensity, so you're going for a nice leisurely walk, you're not sweating, you're not breathing hard, nice, simple. Next is moderate, so maybe you're walking with a friend or it's getting warm out, so you're starting to sweat slightly. Also, you can talk, but you can't sing. Then finally, vigorous or intense is going to be an all-out run, maybe cycling, swimming, something that you're definitely sweating, you can't talk. So another way to look at intensity, and a great way to actually monitor intensity while you're exercising, is through rating of perceived exertion. So what you do with this is when you're exercising, you're going to look at the scale and you're going to say, okay, how hard do I feel I'm working? So if you're working at a 1, very, very light, you're noticing that you're working maybe a little bit, maybe not, but you're starting to feel that something's happening. Then a 2 and a 3, moderate. So the moderate again would be you're starting to break a sweat, maybe you feel like your heart rate's going up a little bit, but generally nothing that you can't sustain for a long time. It's something that you can sustain for an extended period of time. Then as you work harder, as those numbers go up, it gets, so if you're starting to say, oh my gosh, this is hard, or it's getting very hard, then you definitely want to back off, especially as a beginner exerciser, you don't want to be going to that level. So again, the table that we've been using for intensity, and the other version of intensity that we'll talk about later on is heart rate. So this gives you the range of heart rate that you want to be in. So 60 to 80%, but again, we'll talk about that later. Generally, you want to be very light to moderate on that RPE scale. For muscular endurance, muscular strength, moderate for the endurance because it's something you want to be able to maintain. And then for the strength, you want to definitely make it towards the harder end because you want to make sure that you're challenging those muscles and getting those muscle fibers to tear to make them stronger. Flexibility, you just want to hold those stretches. Stretching should not be intense. It should be nice and relaxed. So time, the next component of our principle here, and time is just how long you're exercising for. Again, the 2008 Physical Activity Guidelines, ACSM, recommend that everybody get 150 minutes of exercise a week. Now, as a beginner exerciser, do you think that that's a good recommendation?
Hope not.
No. No, definitely not. So for a beginner exerciser, you're generally looking, so on our chart here, 20 to 60 minutes. So for a beginner exerciser, 20 is just fine. You could even go to 10 or 15. For somebody who's really, really unfit, maybe a senior who hasn't been doing anything for a while, even doing short bouts, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, just to get them moving, get their heart rate going, that kind of thing. Muscular endurance and muscular strength, that's mostly how long it's going to take you to do your exercises. And then flexibility, hold those stretches. The longer you hold them, the more benefit you're going to get from it. And then type. So this is what kind of exercise you're doing. So lots of examples here, walking, running, biking, group exercise, strength training. What are some other examples can anybody give me?
Skiing.
Skiing, absolutely. So the thing with skiing is it a cardiovascular exercise, or do you think it has another component there maybe?
Isn't it a little of everything?
It is absolutely a little bit of everything. You've got that muscular endurance because you need to use those muscles as you're going down the hill. If you've ever skied, you start to feel it in your quads, won't you? Because those muscles are working. They're working against gravity for one. So you definitely need to have stronger muscles to be able to ski, but you also have to have a strong heart, because if you don't have a strong heart, then you're not going to get anywhere. So that's one great example. Basically, anything that's going to be using large muscle groups. And then, so again, type. So cardiovascular is anything that's using large muscle groups, getting your heart rate up for an extended period of time. Muscular endurance, something that's going to keep those muscles working at a higher level than a cardiovascular, but something that you can't maintain for an extended period of time. Pilates, yoga, those are the most popular things right now. Those are great examples of a muscular endurance thing. And then strength is something that you can do, again, short bouts, a little bit of weight, or heavy weight, I should say. And then finally the stretches, again, full range of motion. And then something that you're not going to see in any textbook or generally anywhere except you'll see it somewhere, obviously, because they came up with it. But One thing that we like to add that's very important, especially when you're talking about beginner exercisers, is enjoyment. It's really important that you enjoy what you're doing. Why should you enjoy what you're doing?
You'll do it
Because
more?
you do it more.
You'll do it more. If you enjoy something, are you going to quit?
No.
Not nearly as likely as if it's something that you don't want to be doing. You know, if you're dragging yourself to the gym every day, it becomes a burden, it becomes a pain, and so you're not going to continue doing it. So here's a great representation of the FITT principle and a way to take all the information that we're talking about and put it all together. It gives you all of the information that we talked about in a nice, pretty picture. So, but it gives you the activities that you could be doing, it gives you the time, and the different things, the different components. Whoops. And then finally, just another representation of the FITT principle, and taking all of the things that we talked about and putting them all together in one table. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the information, we're going to break up into groups, and we're going to start working on programs for either for yourself or for somebody else, a beginner exerciser, and we're going to talk about and design exercise programs for beginners. All right, so now that we've gone over designing the exercise programs, we're going to talk a little bit going back to the intensity that we discussed before. So there are different ways of monitoring your intensity. We talked about physical cues, we talked about RPE. We're going to talk about calculating that heart rate now. So this is more complicated than the other two, and so it's for more advanced. If you're dealing with an athlete or somebody who wants to improve their fitness level more significantly, this is a good gauge, a good way to measure that. Starting out with target heart rate, everybody has a target heart rate. It's based on your age. So you want to determine, first of all, your maximum heart rate, and then you take that and you correlate it into target heart rate. To do maximum heart rate, you take, there's a formula. It is 220 minus your age. This is for anybody. That's going to give you your maximum heart rate. So if you have somebody who's 50 years old, that is, help me with my math,
170.
170, thank you, it's getting late. All right, so maximum heart rate for somebody who's 50 years old is going to be 170. You don't ever want to have somebody working at 170. That's when you call the doctor, okay? So that's why we have our target heart rate, and that's why you have ranges. So you take that 170, and generally, the target heart rate range that we're going to shoot for is 55 to 85%. So you take your maximum heart rate, you multiply it by your percentages, your 55 and your 85. So this is, I think I have this example on the next slide. So you're going to calculate it. So your 55% is going to be equal to 94 beats per minute. That's your 55%. Your 85% is going to be 145. So the target heart rate range that the average person is going to be looking for at 50 years of age is going to be 94 to 145. Now, as a beginner exerciser, a 50-year-old, can you adjust this a little bit? Absolutely. You might see some recommendations 50% to 75%. They vary ever so slightly. If you're dealing with a sick population, an older population, again, these numbers might be lowered because you don't want them working up to that maximum level. Plus, they might not be able to work up to that level. So does anybody have any questions about calculating the target heart rate, maximum heart rate? Okay.
So does this apply even to beginners? You
Yes,
lower it? Okay.
beginners. So again, what you want to do is you take the percentage of the maximum heart rate and you can adjust that. So a beginner might only be 55 to 60% of the max heart rate. An athlete might be more like 90, even 95% if they're able to push themselves to that limit. Okay, so I have some handouts, going to pass those out, a couple of different examples that we can work on together, and then leading into what is going to be given for homework tonight.